the water from great depth. So how do you do that calculation?
Yeah, it's one of the things we do when we're considering a mine energy project. So it's one reason why you might not be able to have one of these systems at every single coalfield across the UK. So what we do is we have a look to see whether there's suitable targets. So are there seams that have been worked under the site? And then the next question we ask is, are they full of water? And then the next thing to think about is, what's the depth of that water? And if it's too deep, then as you say, the quality treating the water in terms of the electricity use can make the scheme inefficient. It affects the overall performance of the scheme. So we generally have a rule of thumb that if the water level is more than 100 metres below the surface, then your scheme might not be as economic, unless you have access to maybe a source of photovoltaic electricity or other electricity being generated on site that could be used. But generally that 100 metres is kind of the cut-off that we would think about.
Right, so you sort of have your ballpark measurements for your ideal geothermal old mine.
Yeah, and the shallower the better.
Do you know from the sort of assessments that you've done in your research how widespread and how many homes, if this was rolled out wherever it's available and wherever people could tap into a mine, how many homes this could heat?
We haven't done an estimate on the total number of homes because it's difficult, because not all of them might be new homes, some might be required as retrofit, and there's different kind of economic cases for each. But clearly there's significant potential across the UK in all of the nations. And the thing about it is we're using established technology. So the borehole drilling technology has been used by the energy and water industry for years. We're using heat pumps that have been around for a long time. It's just a new deployment and using a new energy source. So we're running warm water through a pipe instead of running gas through a pipe. So it's got huge potential, and it is technology ready. So you could, in theory, have a mine energy scheme tomorrow, whereas some alternatives heat might take a bit longer to come online.
Charlotte Adams there. And to be honest, 20 degrees sounds lovely right now. It is cold and it is wet out here. And that's all we have time for. I do hope you get to see an interesting exhibition or just manage some COVID-safe socialising soon. Until next week, bye-bye.
BBC Inside Science was presented by Victoria Gill and it was produced by Alex Mansfield.
On BBC Radio 4, more or less. Teacher COVID rates
This new variant appears to be
April
20%.
more transmissible and by Christmas. Several million people will be vaccinated. Got statistical overload? I'm Tim Harford, and I'll be analysing how data affects our everyday lives in the new series of More or Less on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds, starting next Wednesday morning at 9.
This is BBC Radio 4, it's 5 o'clock, time for PM with Evan Davis.
Hello there.
Good evening. So the Princess of Wales does not expect ever to be Queen, and while she doesn't
She says she only wanted to put her side of the story.
Panorama winners of BAFTA's television awards included Martin Bashir.
It was one of the scoops of the century, but now the BBC has apologised for the deceitful way Martin Bashir secured his famous interview with Princess Diana. An inquiry finds he faked documents and the BBC covered up what it knew about his behaviour. We'll hear from Lord Grade, former chairman of the corporation.
The BBC culture is their journalism is never wrong. There is an arrogance in BBC journalism sometimes, which will lead to situations like this.
Also on PM, the chairman of the National Infrastructure Commission will tell us whether the new plan to reorganise the trains will make British Railways great again. Dating in the COVID age is advertising your vaccination status, a way to get more swipe rights. And as we approach a year since the killing of George Floyd, Clive Myrie takes us to Missouri with its own problems in community police relations.
Sometimes things look bad on the video. This one was bad, and for all the progress that we had made since Ferguson, it wiped it out like that.
But we'll start with the BBC News read today by Neil Mears.
An inquiry examining the way the former BBC journalist Martin Bashir secured his world-exclusive interview with Princess Diana 26 years ago has concluded he acted deceitfully and created fake bank statements to persuade her to take part. The review, conducted by the retired Judge Lord Dyson, also found the corporation's initial investigation into what happened was woefully ineffective. The BBC and Mr. Bashir have both apologised, but Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, said he drew a direct line between the interview and his sister's death in 1997. Our media correspondent David Sillito has this report.
A rogue reporter who fabricated an elaborate and wholly false account of his dealings with Earl Spencer and Princess Diana. The words today of the BBC Director General at the time, Lord Burt, after reading today's report. It looks at how Martin Bashir managed to convince Princess Diana to be interviewed and accuses him of repeatedly lying about showing fake documents to Earl Spencer. The BBC investigation at the time is described as woefully ineffective. Martin Bashir says he stands by the interview, and a note from Princess Diana which says she didn't see any fake documents and did not regret the interview was, Lord Dyson says, genuine. But the BBC's current Director General, Tim Davie, has apologised and said it fell far short of what audiences expect. It is, he says, a dark day for the BBC.
A document seen by BBC News suggests the spread of the Indian coronavirus variant in at least one area of England may have been accelerated by failures in the test and trace system. Several councils weren't able to identify cases of the variant for 3 weeks because of a technical problem. The Department of Health insisted the issue was quickly resolved. Here's our political correspondent Ben Wright.
Tracing the contacts of someone who has COVID is crucial for breaking chains of infection. But between the 21st of April and the 11th of May, the National Test and Trace system failed to pass on the full details of over 700 positive cases to 8 local authorities. According to a report by officials in one of the areas affected, the contacts of infected people could not be traced by local authority staff, and the technical glitch exacerbated the rapid spread of the Indian variant. One of the councils, Blackburn with Darwin, has seen a surge in infections. Labour said the failure beggared belief.
Another 7 deaths have been recorded in the UK within 28 days after the test. A further 2,874 cases were diagnosed in the last 24 hours. Separate data from Public Health England suggests that COVID vaccination program has prevented 13,000 deaths in people aged over 60. The latest research also shows that effectiveness of the Oxford AstraZeneca rises from 60 to 90% once a second dose has been given. British women given 40 breast implants have spoken of their relief after a court in France ruled that hundreds of victims should be awarded compensation. More than 2,500 women brought the legal action, many of them from the UK. They were fitted with PIP implants, which were filled with cheap silicone suitable only for industrial use. One of the women involved in the case, Gail Coxon, explained what she wanted the ruling to achieve.
I just hope that there's much stricter regulations. That's been my real hope for the whole outcome of this. Not to gain any monetary compensation for it, it's just to stop it from happening to anybody else again. We were told that these things were completely safe, and you would expect that anything that is going to be put into the human body has been rigorously tested.
Unions have described as a missed opportunity the government's plans to overhaul Britain's rail network, claiming they won't address the financial problems it faces in the wake of the pandemic. A new public body, Great British Railways, will set fares and timetables and commission private companies to run services. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said the changes would make the system less complicated and more accountable.
Neil, thank you for that. Now, from a triumph to disgrace, it was, back in November 1995, an interview like no other. If you're too young to have seen it then, think like the Oprah, Harry and Meghan programme times 10 or 100. A media event that dominated all conversations and the news for a week or weeks ahead of time and after, all around the world.
Panorama is going to broadcast its interview with the Princess of Wales tonight, Anything else on the air at 9:40 this evening? Probably won't get much of a look in.
The papers were wondering if she might talk about her eating disorder, might talk about Charles's infidelity, might even talk about her own. As it turned out, she talked about absolutely everything. Of course, the 3 in our marriage clip is perhaps the one part of the interview that even people who weren't alive at the time have probably heard of.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Do you think you'll ever be queen?
No, I don't. No.
Why do you think that?
I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts, but I don't see myself being queen of this country.
She says she only wanted to put her side of the story. Is the House of Windsor so flimsy it can be shaken by a single interview?
After last night's interview, Buckingham Palace offers talks with the Princess of Wales to help define her future role.
Winners of BAFTA's television awards included Martin Bashir for his interview with the Princess of Wales on Panorama, which was watched by nearly 23 million people.
This is a fantastic honour, not just for Mike and myself, but also for the whole team at Panorama.
Well, you heard a bit of Simon McCoy there, remembering that time from his piece as Sky's Royal Correspondent. Also clips of Panorama in 1995. Well, we now know that the man behind that interview, Martin Bashir, did commission the production of forged bank statements to gain access to Diana. For the interview, the documents were shown to Charles Spencer, Diana's brother, purporting to offer evidence that staff performers felt that his and Diana's were disloyal and being paid by others. In an interview for a Panorama today, Earl Spencer drew a line between that and the death of his sister 2 years later.
Well, the irony is that I met Martin Bashir on the 31st of August 1995, because exactly 2 years later she died. And I do draw a line between the 2 events. It's quite clear from the introduction that I sat in on the 19th of September 1995, everyone was going to be made untrustworthy. And I think that Diana did lose trust in really key people. This is a young girl in her mid-30s who has lived this extraordinarily turbulent and difficult time in the public eye. She didn't know who to trust, and in the end, when she died 2 years later, she was without any form of real protection.
Charles Spencer, Diana's brother. You can watch more incidentally on BBC Panorama's investigation tonight on BBC One at 7 p.m. on the iPlayer. Now, Bashir has admitted commissioning the fake documents, but says it didn't contribute to him securing the interview. But Bashir's reputation has been shattered by a report today which says he repeatedly lied about the forgeries when the allegations were first raised. But Martin Bashir is just one journalist. The report is also excoriating about the BBC's subsequent handling of the deception. Let us talk to Royal Correspondent Joy Diamond with me in the studio. Maybe let's start with Martin Bashir and his integrity, and the Dyson findings there.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably dispose of this first point, Evan, which is that it had nothing to do with Princess Diana. This forged statement had nothing to do with Princess Diana giving an interview. Yes, it is clear Princess Diana was going to give an interview, wanted to give an interview. Lord Dyson makes that very clear in his report. But he also makes it very clear that part of the process by which Martin Bashir got access to Princess Diana, in his opinion, was through presenting these forged bank statements to Earl Spencer, to Charles Spencer, Princess Diana's brother, and thus gaining his trust and gaining access to that. And throughout, I say, the first half of this report, a bit that deals with Martin Bashir, there's this tension between the accounts given by the two figures, by Martin Bashir on the one hand, Charles Spencer on the other. They clearly give completely different stories. And Lord Dyson is very, very clear as to where his sympathies lie. We mocked this up with the voice of a producer.
Where there is a difference between the account given by Earl Spencer and that given by Mr. Bashir, I prefer that of Earl Spencer. I found Earl Spencer a credible witness who gave me an entirely coherent and consistent account. On the other hand, as it comes from this report, there were significant parts of Mr. Bashir's account that I reject as incredible, unreliable, and in some cases, dishonest.
Well, that's a paragraph from the 100 or more pages of the Lord Dyson, former Supreme Court Judge's report. Johnny, it's not just about one journalist. This is more about an organisation absorbing the news, handling the news and the allegations when they came out, and real criticism of the BBC's ability to investigate.
Yeah, he is really quite aggressively critical about the BBC, about BBC News. And not really so much because he thinks that there are members of widespread conspiracy targeting the news or by Panorama to deceive the princess or to deceive our sponsor. It's more about the actions that the BBC, in particular senior managers within BBC News, took at the time to investigate Martin Bashir. Stories started leaking out about Martin Bashir and about these bank statements that could be forged within weeks. And the BBC had several investigations, internal investigations. The most senior one was done by Lord Hall, as he was then, Tony Hall, who was
Now I'm making coffee for myself.
Director General. And Lord Dyson said the investigation by Tony Hall was, well, useless really, that the BBC should have been more open when it made inquiries, and that its programmes, its news programmes, should have covered the story.
In my view, 1, without hearing from Earl Spencer, 2, without receiving from Mr. Bashir an explanation for what he had done, which was a serious breach of the producer's guidelines, and 3, in the light of his unexplained lying on 3 occasions about whether he had shown the fake statements to anyone, Lord Hall could not reasonably have concluded that Mr. Bashir was an honest and honourable man, and should not have done so. The answers given by the BBC to specific questions by the press were evasive, and by failing to mention on any news programme the fact that it had investigated what Mr. Bashir had done and the outcome of the investigations, the BBC fell short of the high standards of integrity and transparency which are its hallmark.
I mean, Johnny, it's not surprising. It's been a day when the BBC's been apologising.
Yeah, I mean, people have been falling over themselves to apologise. But in particular, Tim Davey, the relatively new Director General who set up the independent inquiry, or commissioned the independent inquiry, he offered a full and unconditional apology. The BBC has also written to Prince Charles, Prince Harry, Prince William, and Earl Spencer with apologies. It is returning all the awards that it received as a result of the interview. It has said it will no longer run the interview, but it is essentially scrubbing what was an enormous triumph from its archive and to some degree from history.
Johnny, thank you for that. And let's just play this this clip. This is actually the Director General, current Director General, Tim Davey, who had this reaction today.
I think it's a very difficult moment for the BBC. Overall, Lord Dyson's done a very thorough job of getting to the facts after 25 years, which is too long. We accept the findings of the report in full, and I'm very sorry for all those that were affected by it. I mean, if you look at this, there are multiple values for the BBC to reflect on, 25 years ago, but still, they're very, very serious.
This is the two of you saying that people who play for the
So the scones I made, actually they turn out to be like muffins. They are ready, and I'm making coffee. There is batch in the oven, you can see it. The oven is not very clean. This is the batch which is ready, and then I have this one.
British women involved in a legal fight over their faulty breast implants say they're delighted that the French court has ruled hundreds of victims should receive compensation.
And
First anniversary of the killing of George Floyd.
this is my
We
coffee.
have been looking at George murder and its effects around the world this week, and in the
So,
last of our special reports, Clive Myrie.
It will take about 20-25 minutes for the rest of the muffins to bake, and then I'll check and we'll show you later on. They'll be definitely like these ones.